Budgeting and building wealth doesn't have to be hard. In fact, you can set up an automatic process to help you manage your money and to help you become a millionaire. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a blueprint. Once you implement using this process, then you can go on with your day-to-day life without worrying about how your money is being managed. If you're new to this channel, my name is Austin, and here we talk about personal finance, investment, and lifestyle to reach financial freedom. If you like this video, please remember to like and perhaps subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. People often ask, how early is too early to think about retirement? For most people, it could be in their 20s. However, I think it's never too early or too late to think about retirement. And that's why the first thing I want to talk about is automatically depositing a portion of your paycheck directly into the retirement fund. In America, that could be the 401k. In Canada, that will be the RRSP. Ideally, you want to save or invest around 5% of your income into the retirement fund. And maybe work your way up to 10 to 15% over your lifetime. However, even if you only can start with 1%, I think that's still great compared to if you never start at all. So some employers also offer this program where they would match the retirement funds that you contribute to. Make sure you enroll into it immediately. And too often I see friends or people that I know, they don't understand what this really means, this matching program, and they never enroll or too lazy to enroll in it themselves. What these matching plans simply means is that for every dollar you contribute to your retirement fund, your employer will also contribute the same amount up to a certain percentage of your total income. So let's say if the matching program is 5% of your total income, and your total annual income for this year is $50,000. That means if you contribute $2,500 to your retirement fund, then your employer will also contribute $2,500. This is essentially free money, and I don't think anyone should say no to free money. That's why I think everyone should enroll in this benefit immediately. Some employers may not offer this benefit. However, there's usually a traditional retirement account for anyone to open. So you should still try to open one and contribute to it because it will reduce your taxable income for that year, and often it will be tax exempt for investment purposes as well. After you automatically deposit your money into retirement funds, all your income should go into a checking account, and this is like a central hub where you manage processes to secure your wealth. And one of the first steps I suggest is to make sure you set up your emergency fund. Emergency fund is like a cash cushion that you can fall back into. Let's say all of a sudden you may have lost your job, or you have racked up a large expense because of insurance claim or health reasons. You can go about your day-to-day without worrying too much. And I say most of the time people suggest 3 to 6 months of expenses as emergency fund. But in case that's too difficult, starting with even just 500 to 1,000 is a great point. And if you do that, you're still better than most people. Try to put your emergency fund into a high yield saving account that's still easily accessible. This way, your money in the emergency fund can be generating some cash and it's not just sitting there doing nothing. I would also say that you can put an automatic deposit, maybe 1 to 3% of your income into this emergency fund until you have reached your target. Notice that the first two steps are not about expenditures. Well, this is the practice of paying yourself first, where the mindset is about paying for your future self instead of thinking about spending for some expenses. So if you still, according to your budget, have some room for investment, this is where I suggest you think about putting the money into investment. I'm not going to talk about the investment in too much detail because I'm going to be linking to another video that's dedicated to investment strategy. In a nutshell, I suggest putting your investments into tax-free saving accounts or tax-free investment accounts. These are basically accounts that are exempt for any capital gain taxes, and it's basically made for your investments. In America, that's the Roth IRA and TFSA. In Canada, that's the TFSA and RRSP. I also suggest investing in low-fee ETFs, for example, the S&P 500 that tracks the US market, as well as maybe the total US market index. These are great because it is lower risk and long-term investment. So you don't have to worry about monitoring them, and since the inception, it has generated about 8 to 10% on average for annual returns. I also suggest diversifying your portfolio by investing into bonds. Bonds are a great way to hedge so that you will be lowering your risk, especially during stock market turbulence. For example, when the government is increasing the interest rate, the bonds will be increasing in terms of returns, and generally the stock market will drop. So in this case, it's great that you have some of these hedging and you'll be reducing your risk. I suggest maybe in your early investment years, you may have less wealth. So in that case, you can put a higher risk, so more percentage into the stock market. I suggest maybe 80% into the stock market and 20% into the bond if you're in your early investment years. If you're at later stages when you have accumulated some wealth already, then I suggest maybe 60% into the stock market and 40% into bonds. Alright, finally we're going to talk about paying for some expenditures. And the first thing is very important, which is paying off your high interest debt. You may have different type of debt. You just want to make sure that you're paying off your high interest debt first. High interest debts, for example, could be credit card debt, and maybe in some places your mortgage rate could be really high, or maybe your student loan could have really high interest as well. Whichever it is, make sure you pay it off first. You don't want to accumulate these debt because they will be draining your money faster and faster. So in this case, you may have different type of methods to paying off these debt. If you have a lot of debt, it might be hard to navigate. One of the method is the snowball method, which just means that you're paying off the smallest amount debt first. Let's say if you have 5 different kind of debt, and one of them is the lowest, and you can finish it maybe in just 6 months. Perhaps you want to do that one first. This way you feel a sense of gratification, and that way you can slowly make it more manageable and trackable in terms of lesser and lesser debts to pay to. Second one is the avalanche method, which just means that you're paying for the high interest debt first. And usually this is a great method because you may have debts that have really high interest, and you definitely want to pay those off first so that overall you're actually paying less debt. Whatever method that you choose to do, just make sure you're consistent and you are paying off your debt. I do know people that often are just too bombarded and too scared of debt. They just decided to avoid it all in all. That's not a great idea, of course. So make sure that you are tracking your debt and paying off it on a consistent manner. You may also have low interest debt, perhaps 1 to 3% per year. These are generally okay debts, and they could be considered good debt as well. What I mean by that is, instead of paying off a 1% debt, it might be better to use some of this money to invest first. Because in general, if you invest in the index and the stock market, you could be getting 6 to 10% return annually. And that could be better than just paying off for a 1% debt. However, this is entirely up to you, and you need to manage your money the most way that you're comfortable with. Either way, you make sure you want to pay the minimum amount, even if it's low interest debt, so that you avoid any late fees or bad credit scores. After the above 4 payment, now it's finally to talk about your expenses for necessities. What I mean by necessities is your utilities, rental, insurance, and groceries. And I'm not talking about your Steam collection here. So paying for these necessities is important to understand the difference between necessity versus want. And this just simply means things that's necessary for living. And I also suggest setting up a reoccurring date for these payments so you have a ease of mind and you don't have to worry about payments on certain dates. Now all the tough parts are done, you may still have some money left over. This is where you can splurge a little bit, treat your significant other for a nice meal, or maybe save it up so that you can go for a better annual vacation. If you follow this blueprint, I think you'll have a more enjoyable day-to-day life where you no longer have to worry about where your money is going. And I think this fundamentally will also help you with your lifestyle, confidence, and happiness. So that's it for this video. I hope you really enjoyed the content. If you did, please make sure that you like this video and considering subscribing to the channel. Until next time.